Hello and welcome back to episode 14 of the Middle Ground podcast and episode 2 of our mini series Fat Loss Foundations, where I cover everything you need to know to achieve the physique that you want, essentially. Last episode was about the hierarchy of fat loss, essentially, the things that you need to know to achieve fat loss. And the order in which they go, in my mind, a lot of them are middle ground. You've got the really important stuff, which is one or two things. You've got the middle ground. Oh, podcast name. Let's go. The middle ground, that's quite a lot of things. And then the things that don't matter, which is slightly less things. So that's what we covered last episode. This episode, I'm going to do a dive into calories in general. And then next episode, I'm going to dive into protein, so on and so forth, until episode 10, where you will know everything. And episode 10, I'll put everything together in a nice little package with a bow on it for you. But today, I'm going to explain calories in a way that you might finally understand, and in a way that isn't scary. Because I think a lot of people hear the word calorie, and it freaks them out a little bit. They think of it as maybe a bad thing. Like if something is high in calories, it's often quite an emotional response. I think calorie is quite an emotional word for a lot of people, actually. I think it elicits a response that is emotional to some people, whether that is fear or guilt, or maybe if something's low calorie, they're more drawn to it. But today I'm going to explain it in a way that you might understand and make them simple and not scary, essentially. So let's talk about what a calorie actually is. Now, I did cover this last episode, so I'm going to do it very quickly. And now that I know the definition, because of the last episode, I don't have to Google it. It is the amount of energy it requires to raise 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. A calorie is a unit of energy. That's as simple as that. Again, there's no moral, no emotional, no attachment to it. It's merely a unit of measurement for, measuring energy, right? So, that lighting has gone terrible. I apologize if you're watching the video of this as well. I am sat in my conservatory. There's glaring sunlight through the window. But this is the spot, so you're getting what you get. So that's what a calorie is, very simply. Now, why are calories important to fat loss? More importantly, why is a calorie deficit important to fat loss, or essential to fat loss, actually? Well, we burn a certain amount of energy a day, our total daily energy expenditure, as we covered in the last episode. You need to be consuming less energy, so calories, than that number to lose fat. Because that deficit, let's say you burn 2,500 a day and you're consuming 2,000 a day, that 500 calorie deficit will be made up by the fat stores on your body. The energy stores on your body. That's how you lose fat. You start to pull energy from those stores because your body needs it to survive, and you're not giving it. So the bigger the deficit, the more fat you'll pull from those stores. That's not to say the bigger deficit, the better, because there's inherent downsides. It's less sustainable. It's harder to adhere to. It has impacts on a lot of things. We're talking libido, we're talking hormones, we're talking energy levels, a lot of things. So it's not my advice, but the bigger the deficit, the more fat your body pulls because the more energy it needs to find. Fat loss is impossible without a deficit. I want to make that very clear. If you're not in a calorie deficit, you won't achieve fat loss. That doesn't mean that methods of achieving a calorie deficit don't work and different methods don't work. For example, if you're intermittent fasting, right? That's a way to lower your total calorie consumption. If you do keto, that's a way to lower your total calorie consumption. If you're doing paleo, if you're doing whatever you're doing, they don't work inherently because that's what you're doing. They are simply a means to an end of achieving a calorie deficit. That's what most diets attempt to do. Some in better ways, some in less better ways, less than ideal ways. So, why does healthy eating not guarantee fat loss? This is a question I get a lot. Not specifically worded like that, but people want to lose fat and they go, I'm just going to eat healthy. I just need to focus on eating healthily. And in some ways, I'm never going to discourage people from doing that. Not in a million years am I going to say, don't eat healthily. Like, of course not. I mean, there's no set definition on eating healthily. But if you try to improve the nutrient profile of the foods that you're eating and the volume and quantity in which you eat them, it's probably going to be good for your health, right? So, why does eating healthy not inherently equal fat loss? Because you might not be in a calorie deficit. People are saying, oh, I eat so bad, I eat too bad that I can't lose fat. I just need to clean up my diet. I need to do clean eating. I need to eat whole foods. Yeah, you probably do. But it's only because that makes it easier to be in a calorie deficit. If one person eats 2,500 calories and another person eats 2,500 calories, but person A eats it of whole foods, so vegetables, if it didn't come from the earth or have a mother, you're not eating it, right? This person's not eating it. And then the next person eats 2,500 calories of fast food, same calories, same effect on fat loss, given that protein is equated. But person A is going to find it much easier. They're going to be fuller. The health is going to be better. Outside of fat loss, obviously, their health will be better. Their health markers will be better. Their hormones are going to be better, most likely. They're going to have higher energy levels. So fat loss isn't dictated by the quality of food that you eat, but the ease at which you can lose fat is. And the difficulty of it is. If you're eating whole foods, highly satiating, high in protein, high fiber, high nutrient values, you're going to find fat loss a lot easier in the long term. However, if you need to include some quote-unquote less healthy foods, some higher calorie dense foods, when you're in a pinch to achieve your total calorie and protein goal for the day, that's not going to ruin your fat loss. No, not at all. That's not how it works. A lot of people think they either have to eat 100% clean or they're not. So they're on the wagon, they're off the wagon. No, it's a dial, not a switch. Blur the lines. If you have access to high nutrient, whole foods, fucking awesome. Go for it. If you're out and about and you need food and you don't have access to that, there's a middle ground you can find there. You can go to a shop if you're in England, if you're English, you can get a meal deal. Americans don't have meal deals. Blows my fucking mind. You get a sandwich, protein bar, drink. You can have a meal deal with 50 grams of protein and 500, 600 calories, right? It exists. You've just got to be smart about it. Yeah, is it the most nutrient-dense food? Probably not. Does that matter? No. So, fat loss, or healthy eating does not always equal fat loss, but eating whole foods of a high nutrient value, high protein, high fiber, does make it easier. Okay, but you need to be in a calorie deficit. Let's talk quickly about maintenance deficit and surplus. Those words, what they mean. So, calorie maintenance, or maintenance, whatever you want to call it, is when your body weight is maintaining, right? So you're consuming the exact amount of calories that you need to survive. That target, or that amount you burn in a day, you're hitting pretty much spot on. Deficit, obviously you're eating below that. Anything below that is technically a deficit. A 1 calorie deficit, yeah, fine, maybe not, right? But you will lose fat if you're in a deficit consistently. Even if it's 100 calorie deficit a day. You'll probably start losing fat. If you're in a surplus, obviously your weight is going up. You're over-consuming. You're overdoing that budget of calories that you have. So let's say it's 2,500. You might be in 2,600, 700, 800, 3,000 maybe, right? That's all those words mean. Maintenance, deficit, surplus. Right, so maintenance, maintaining weight. Deficit, losing weight. Surplus, gaining weight. Very simply. Now, one thing I really want to get very clear on with you is how simple it is to lose fat. It's very simple. Very simple. Now, most people over-egg how hard it is to lose fat. So they overestimate how hard it's going to be. And they underestimate how long they're going to do it for. The slower your progress, generally, the more sustainable it is, the more fat you'll lose over time, the less likely you are to gain it back. That is a very important part of this process, is losing it and not gaining it back. So I wouldn't go in really aggressive. If you've got a ton of weight to lose, maybe go in aggressive when you've got this excess surplus energy to capitalize on. But if you want sustainable long-term progress and you haven't got loads of weight to lose, just take it easy, man. I'd much rather have someone in a deficit for 3 months than have someone in a deficit for a month when they struggle with adherence. When you get to a point that you can happily put yourself in a deficit, you understand what it feels like, and you can push, awesome. Put yourself in a more drastic deficit, push for a month rather than, having less suffering but making it 3 months. But at the start, you want to make it sustainable until you get to grips with what fat loss feels like, what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, and how you can do it very unemotionally, right? Sorry, I'm really sniffly today, so I apologize. But I wouldn't go too aggressive. A lot of people think they have to be super aggressive. They have to cut everything out just to lose fat. Not the case. You can include a lot of the things you enjoy. You can have social events. You can go out for meals. You can eat like processed foods. You've just got to manage your total calorie and your total protein intake. Generally, on average, if you have a few days where you're above, don't fucking sweat it. Don't spiral. Just keep going. But don't think it's going to be super difficult, because it doesn't have to be. But also don't think it's going to be super quick, because it won't be. Great results come from doing boring things for an extraordinary amount of time. Very clear on that. Now, what is a realistic rate of progress for fat loss? The general consensus among coaches, it varies person to person, but a general average consensus is 1 pound a week, because it's very easy maths. There's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. So that's how much energy is in 1 pound of fat on your body, 3,500 calories. So, oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm really sniffly. So, if you're in a 500 calorie deficit a day over the course of 7 days, that's 3,500 calories of a deficit. It's 1 pound of fat. It's not you don't have to really push for that, or some people don't. Fat loss is different for everyone, but 1 pound of fat a week, pretty sustainable. And it's fast enough that you're seeing this progress relatively quickly, okay? Now, some people can push it a little bit harder. Again, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, that average rate can go up. You might be in 2 pounds a week. You might be in 1,000 calorie deficit a day. That is a lot. That's a lot. But if you're a bigger person, if you're a tall, let's say you're like a 6'5" man that weighs 150 kilos. So you're a big boy. Your deficit might be fucking 3,500 calories. Like it varies. Whereas if you're a 5'5", 60 kilo woman, 1,000 calorie deficit might kill you. That might put you on 1,000 calories a day. Not very fun. Okay? So just take these things into account. Average rate of fat loss. Pound of fat a week. Half a kilo a week. Sustainable. Not going to, lower your calories so low that you're in the shitter. But it also does require a good amount of effort. Tracking versus not tracking is the next point I'm going to hit. But I'm going to have a sip of my Monster first. Excuse me. Wow. Wonderful stuff. So, the question I get from a lot of people is, I want to lose fat, but I don't want to track food. What do I do? And it's an interesting topic, because you can lose fat without tracking food. You can. Tracking doesn't put you in a deficit. It just makes you aware of how many calories you're eating, so it's easier to be in a deficit. So it's not inherently going to fix things, but it does make it easier. Now, if you have never tracked food before, you have no idea about nutrition, outside of a baseline understanding, I couldn't recommend that you track your food enough, unless you've had a history with some sort of disordered eating, in which place you've probably tracked your food anyway before. But if you have never tracked food before and you want to lose fat, I can't recommend tracking enough. Getting a food scale, understanding what portion sizes look like, understand what nutrition is in the food that you eat on a day-to-day basis, absolutely massive. People don't eat very different things on a day-to-day basis. So if you can track your food every day for 2 months, let's say, you will get such an incredible understanding about what is in the food that you eat, how that makes you feel, and what a day in a deficit looks like for you, that maybe you won't need to track after that. Maybe you dip in and out of tracking. This is what I do now that I've tracked for years and I understand nutrition. I can dip in and out of tracking. I go, I'm not really bothered. I'm just going to maintain my weight. I can I don't have to track. If I'm dedicated to a fat loss phase, I will track my food because I want to be aware of it. Obviously, like I said, tracking doesn't put you in a deficit automatically, obviously, but it does make it very consistent that you stay in a deficit and you can finish the day knowing, okay, this is how much food I ate today. I know this is a deficit for me based on my general activity. I can stick to this consistent, steady rate of fat loss. So it's not only that it stops you overeating, but it stops you under-consuming. Because if in your head fat loss is your goal, you might chronically undereat on calories and on protein. And that's not going to put you in a great position because your energy levels will drop quickly. You might initially lose quite a bit of fat, but I don't think you'll be able to sustain it for more than a couple of days. If you're in a drastic deficit and you don't have loads of fat to lose, it's going to be really tough. So tracking, while it helps you not overeat, it also helps you not undereat, which is another really important factor of this equation. So tracking isn't something that should control you, but it's something that can guide you and educate you on what fat loss looks like for you. Because if you've never tracked food, you will probably overestimate portion sizes. You'll probably underestimate the amount of calories that you eat in a day. And even if you attempt to track, studies have shown that without fully tracking everything and putting it on a weighing scale, if people are actively trying to track their food, they will eat less calories, even if it's not 100% accurate, just because they're being more conscious of their food decisions. Again, if you know that everything that you put in your mouth, you have to write down and acknowledge, it makes you much more aware of the snacking and the little handfuls of things here and there. Because eventually, you go to the fridge and you go, if I eat something, I've got to track it. You're like, fuck's sake. That's what stops me when I'm tracking, is I walk past the fridge and I go, if I eat something, I'm going to have to track it. I can't be bothered. And I'm actually not that hungry. It just gives you that pause, gives you that space, helps you reflect on, do I actually want to eat something right now? And stops that mindless eating. If you're doing that consistently, you might eat an extra 600, 700 calories a day that you don't even notice, especially if you work somewhere there's a lot of food, like an office, or even if you work in a kitchen. You might mindlessly snack on 1,000 calories a day and I'm just barely even remember it, barely even register that you've eaten anything. So that's where I think tracking can be really useful. And if anyone is starting out with fat loss, I can't recommend it enough. Unless you've had a history with the disordered eating behavior and you think that's going to re-aggravate it, I can't recommend it enough. Get a food scale off Amazon. They're like less than a tenner. Download a free app. I use Chronometer. I think it's really useful and it's free. So that's where I stand on the basis of tracking and not tracking. If you've done it for years or months and you want to try and move away from tracking, 100% doable. But I wouldn't rely on it from the get-go. I think I'd get a good idea and a perspective on what a day of eating looks like for you to lose fat. That's largely this episode. Again, I didn't want to make these super long because I want them to be short educational series rather than an hour of me rambling with not much valuable information. So your takeaway from this week is to go online, go to my calculator if you want to, go to TDEE calculator, work out your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure, and then your calorie and protein target based on your goals, and start tracking your fucking food. Because it's going to help. It's going to help you create such an awareness around food and knowledge and education around food that you didn't have before, so that you can make conscious decisions based on your goals to start working towards your goals. Again, it's not meant to control you. It's meant to guide you. It's meant to educate you. And I think it allows you to eat things that you might not normally allow yourself to eat if you're in a fat loss phase. Because you go, I've got 300 calories left at the end of the day. I'm going to have a fucking chocky bar, right? Think of it like that. Don't think of it like a prison. Think of it like it frees you up a little bit. It frees you up to make slightly more, it's called if it fits your macros, which is like, don't bother about the quality of the food as long as it fits your macros. Not a huge fan of that approach, but to some degree, if you hit your protein and you've got a few calories left, have fun with it. Make it more enjoyable, make it more sustainable. But that is this episode of The Middle Ground, episode 2 of Fat Loss Foundations. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it useful. Like, subscribe, comment. Got any questions, comment them down below, or message me on Instagram @JudeVenCoaching. And I will see you in the next one where we're going to talk about protein. Thank you for listening. Bye.